Hi everyone, you are Reddit expose there, enjoy watching.
Chicago knows how to talk in drafts. In winter, it whispers through the cracks in the windows. In summer, hums over the roofs, like an old fan in the kitchen. I learned how to measure time with announcements on CTA trains. This is damn. Doors closing. Each station is like a notch in the memory. I met June at California. We met at a laundry in Milwaukee. My bag of coins broke, and quarters fell on the floor. June picked up two, tossed them in her palm like a magician, and said, "If you want, I'll trade it for $1 and a piece of pie. There's a real rhubarb next to Bang Bang." I agreed, even though I hated rhubarb. The pie had a heart as warm as a jumpsuit from the dryer. June laughed lightly and loudly, as if she were blowing the wine instead of the city. We began to live by routes. She marked new coffee shops with a red marker, and I marked covered courtyards with a green marker where I could wait out the rain. At Western, they took coffee in paper and went to 606, a former piece of hardware that became a path over the blocks. June studied to be a cook. In the morning, she smelled of bread. In the evening, she smelled of fatigue and old-style beer, which is washed down with lack of sleep. I wrote texts for the agency, slogans about happy kitchens and carefree insurance plans. We had one thing in common: we both knew how to pretend to be more confident than we really were. In the spring, the city straightened its shoulders, and so did we. At Monroe Harbor, she taught me how to tell the wind from the waves, and at Green Mill, we listened to jazz, as if it could pick up the pieces of what we were not telling. The words forever then sounded natural, like a train announcement, just part of the route. Then June was offered an internship in Portland just for 6 months. Come on. It's decent to fly. 6 months can be easily packed in a suitcase, but they don't fit well in the heart. We try. Zooms, breakfast photos, promises of here's another season and back. I met her 3 times at the Belmont. Once with a scarf in July, it was cooler in Portland. Once with tired hands, and once with a different city in her eyes. The last morning turned out to be very Chicago. Cold, slushy, tram ringing, which is actually a train. We were sitting in the Lula on the corner, sharing a bun with seeds, and we were so silent that we could hear coffee dripping into a glass flask. She said, "If I come back, it won't be for you. It will be more honest." I nodded, even though every word sounded like glass in my teeth. We stood on the corner, like 2 cars on a stop line, and then we parted. The city knows how to pretend that nothing happened. He got more wine from somewhere, more orders, more evenings where strangers smile just because there's a good song in the bar. I moved closer to Logan Square, started running along the river, and got into the habit of going to the Garfield Conservatory on Saturdays. It's warm there, even when the world outside is tin foil. Sometimes I found myself choosing places without rhubarb. Letters from June came rarely, like signals from another planet. A photo of rain on fir branches, a recipe for soup that even the tired get it. I replied with pictures of snow on the railing and short "we have the wind again." Over time, the messages stopped requiring a response. It was like when you stop checking if the door is closed, you just believe. 2 years later, she wrote, "I'll be in town for the weekend. There are 10 free hours. Coffee?" I reread it and realized that my heart was no longer dissolving, but was only listening more attentively. He replied, "Can you go to Damon at 3? I'll take that pie." And at 3, I was standing at the laundry room where it all started, holding a box of Bang Bang in my hands, and I thought that rhubarb wasn't to blame. June came without a theater. I began to hold my back differently, less I can handle it, more I'm just so comfortable. We went to the river under the overpass, where the footsteps resonate with iron, and where the city sounds like a big instrument. She talked about a restaurant with an open oven that smells like the best intentions, but pays as always, about a house with a farmer's market on Sundays, about a neighbor who plays the trombone and knows only 3 tunes. I told him about the agency, where I finally told the boss that happy kitchens require human hours, about the bridge at 606, where I learned to stand and take my time, about the fact that I no longer wrap every thought in an advertising slogan. We sat down on the steps by the water. The pie was tart and sweet, like an admission that I was wrong about rhubarb. June looked at the barges as if they felt better. At least they knew where to flow. "Are you mad at me?" "What is it?" she asked. "Sometimes it affects the weather." "Not at you," I said. "I'm angry at my scripts. They were too loud." "I wrote loudly too," she confessed. "Portland taught me how to whisper." We went back, and at division she stopped at a display case with pots. "I thought I'd come back for you," But now I understand that they are not returning to people. To myself, you seem to be home already. At home. It's where I choose enough instead of maximum, I said. And for the first time, I didn't want to make excuses for simplicity. We hugged briefly, like people who spend a lot of time carrying something heavy, and finally agreed to put it on the ground. She went to the blue line, and I went to Damon. The train said its doors closing, and I smiled. For the first time in a long time, this phrase sounded not like loss, but like care. I didn't write to her for a long time after the meeting, not because I wanted to pause, but because nothing was needed. Chicago has thrown up new habits. On weekends, I started teaching a free seminar at the Armitage Library. We talked about short texts that help you breathe, notes on a refrigerator, phrases on postcards, to lines in phone notes. One student wrote, "Don't answer letters written in the rain at night." I asked for permission to steal. In the summer, I built a little tradition, buying rhubarb pie at the end of the month, then sharing it with someone random, a neighbor, a librarian, a guy who sells funicular magnets on the corner. There are no funiculars in Chicago, but they buy magnets anyway. Each piece was like a signature for the fact that adulthood is not what was left after, but what happened because of it. Sometimes I saw a profile in the crowd that looked like June. My heart was racing. Physiology, no more. I learned to smile at these phantoms as if they were familiar. "Hello. Thank you for being there." The city responded with normal weather, with the wind coming from behind this time. One day, coins were scattered in the laundry room again, not mine. The girl in the baseball cap complained that the machine eats dollars. I changed it for quarters, and we talked while the drums were spinning other people's shirts. She asked me what Chicago had taught me. "It's shorter to talk," I said, "and listen longer." She laughed. I thought that maybe this is the unwritten story. It's not about bringing back the past at all. Rather, it's about how to stop carrying it in the wrong pockets. That evening I was walking along 606, and the sunset was burning in the west. Not a postcard, without pathos, just a light that normal people call beautiful. I took out my phone and texted June 2 lines. "Rhubarb is still tart, but now it's my favorite. Point. Send." Without expectations. The train below screeched with brakes, and in the familiar doors closing, I heard a new one. "See you soon." With the city. Tomorrow morning. With me. Right now. With someone else. When the routes coincide. And suddenly, was enough. Spring in Chicago knows how not to come, but to appear. First in puddles, then in the palms with which you stop hiding your face from the wind. After June's message about rhubarb, I began to notice how it became easier for me to breathe, not despite, but together. And as if in response, the city quietly pushed me a couple of new cases. The first one happened in that same Milwaukee laundromat. The hostess hung an empty corkboard over the exchange. I taped blue masking tape to it and left a pencil. "What are you holding while the car is spinning?" "Write one short one." The following week, the board was living its life. "Don't answer during the spin. Drink water. Don't put someone else's guilt in the drum." The latter hooked me, and the author was found. A girl in a jacket with a clay stain on her sleeve. She came over, turned on the drying timer, and added, "And don't confuse white with just light." I laughed. Her name was Maya. The workshop is across the street, behind a vintage store with a sign that is always slightly crooked. She made dishes for small cafes and taught classes in the evenings, a mug in 3 meetings. I went in just to look and got stuck, in the warm smell of the stove, in the sound of wet clay, in that calmness where no one hurries anyone. There were mugs on the shelf with barely noticeable thumb dents. "It's not a defect," Maya said. "This is a place for a grip. Everyone has their own way." I asked them to make one. Simple, heavy, without a drawing. "With what word?" she asked. She had a box of tiny brands. "Drink, breathe, later, silence." I chose enough. She nodded. "They rarely ask." My Saturday seminar at the Armitage Library grew. People began to bring their own short notes for themselves, inscriptions on the doors, lines for the commuter. We came up with the colon evening. Everyone brings a phrase, after which you do not want to finish, but to live. The doors are closing. See you later. Winter. Bread. The meter is ticking. There is water. Maya once came with a box of dough mugs for a cup exchange. Whoever takes it leaves a word on the board. The next day, the entire library was drinking from mismatched ceramics and for some reason spoke more softly. Sometimes June sent short postcards without a return address. "The rain smells like a Christmas tree. The shift is over. I smell smoke." I replied with one line, wind in the back on 606. No questions, no do you remember. Texts have ceased to be ropes. They have become bridges over which you can cross and not pull anyone. In the summer, out of habit, I bought a rhubarb pie at Bang Bang and carried it as warm news, not knowing to whom. At the laundry, the teenager stumbled. Socks, coins, and a piece of paper with a formula fell out of his backpack. I gave him the box. You can share it in the dorm. He hesitated. I don't like rhubarb. I used to. I reply. And for the first time I heard in my own voice not a lesson, but an invitation. Mayan, I began to cross paths by chance a little more often than by chance. She was teasing me about my habit of measuring the day by stations. Which branch are you on today? I learned her pace, the way she takes pauses between tasks, as if she's leaving room for air. When it was raining, we went to the Garfield greenhouse, sat by the cacti and read the city announcements aloud like poetry. We walked to Monroe Harbor in the sun. I showed her how to guess the wine from the water. She showed me how to guess the mood from the edge of a mug. A little thicker means a person is taking care of himself. The laundry board has become a neighborhood habit. I added a pack of blank cards to the holidays and a couple of warm-up phrases to them. A local musician wrote, "Don't rehearse in the dryer unless you're wearing socks." An elderly woman left. Waiting is also an action. The hostess said that people are less likely to quarrel over cars. They are now talking with cards, not with each other. I thought it was good diplomacy. One day I was invited to an evening of 2-minute stories at the Hideout. I brought 3. About the Willet spinning board, about the Enough is Enough mug, and about the train, which cares about me more than some people with its doors closing. No one shouted bravo, but a CTA driver came up to me near the stage and said, "I like your see you later." I often think that way with headphones on. That was enough for a long time. In the fall, Maya and I made a small stand shelf in Logan Square, reserve words for a rainy day. In the boxes are cartons of hold on, call, drink, take a break, ask, cancel, thank you. Those who took it sometimes returned their word to replace it. So we got don't burn out. That's enough for today. I don't have to be a hero. I thought about June calmly. One day she sent a photo. The sign of her restaurant close in the rain. I replied with a picture of our shelf with the word do not burn. Not because he wanted to say something, but because it was true for that evening. There was silence in response, and that was fine with me. In winter, the city was covered with tin again. We moved the evening to the laundry room. It's warm there. Maya brought my mug enough, let them use it. I grimaced, it's a personal thing, and then I caught myself. I used to be afraid that they would take me away. Now, that won't be useful. Many people liked the mug. Someone added sugar, someone drank empty coffee, but everyone read the word and, for a short while, warmed up. One night, when the wind was shaking in the windows, Maya asked, "Are you happy now?" I thought longer than I could have done in a movie. "I'm at home now," I said, "and that's better than happy." "Where are the houses?" She clarified. "Where enough doesn't feel like defeat," I reply. "Where there is someone to say see you, even if it is an announcement on the train." We laughed, drank tea, and listened to someone's buckle tapping in the dryer on the ground floor, like a small neighborhood metronome. In the spring, we were asked to make a small inscription for a new bench by the river. "No heroism, please," said a man from the district council. Maya and I argued. "Sit down, breathe, take your time." As a result, we chose a simple one. "You can wait for yourself." When someone ran their finger over the letters at the opening, I felt the same calmness in my stomach as the day June spoke honestly at the Belmont. We've all finally stopped rushing about something. Sometimes it seems to me that I am writing my main story not in a document, but in these little things: a blackboard over a money changer, a mug with a stamp, a bench with a phrase, a pie that you share with someone who says, "Don't like rhubarb," and trains that close the doors softly. Every item has a place to grit. I found it too. Recently, I caught myself with a new answer when an unfamiliar number rings with the offer success, presentation, tour. I say, "Let's be brief and honest. I have 2 minutes." Not because I've become cynical, but because I take care of the air. And June. We see each other rarely and easily, like neighbors at mailboxes. She tells me the recipe for green pepper sauce, and I'm talking about a teenager who came up with don't burn. We nod to each other and part ways, not confusing yesterday with now. This is probably the adult version of forever. No one keeps anyone at their stations, but everyone has a home. Today I measured the day with stations again. California, Western, Damon. On Damon, the train said its doors closing, and I said my see you later. And for the first time he added aloud, thank you for the journey. Then he went into the laundry room, took a pencil and wrote on a card, enough is enough when you want to continue. He glued it on, adjusted the edge of the tape, and smiled at Maya. She was just carrying a crumpled box of new mugs. We sat on a bench by the window, and the city, as always, pretended that nothing had happened. But I knew there was a sequel. In the summer, the city pretended to exhale, and I believed it. The heat in Chicago always comes without ceremony, like a man without keys, loudly, but to his own. Maya and I continued our quiet geography, laundry, library, workshop, shop by the river. Everything seemed to be on track. Usually, at such moments, life brings a small test to check if your piece is not cardboard. The laundry room jerked first. The hostess said that the new owners want to do it cleanly, repaint the walls, remove excess. Superfluous is our board above the exchange table. I stood, listened, and felt the old reflex rising in me to be offended, to hold on, to argue. Maya touched my elbow. 2 minutes. Say it briefly. I took a breath and said, the board reduces quarrels and collects tips. She's a useful thing. Let me frame it and post the cleaning rules next to it. The hostess shrugged her shoulders. Make a frame. Maya and I knocked down a smooth wooden border in the evening, waxed it, and screwed a small shelf for pencils on top. I added with a marker, don't confuse white and just light. Waiting is also an action. The new owners took a look and left. The check was passed without a fight. For the first time, I noticed how nice it is to throw away old armor. A week later, a woman in a CTA uniform approached me in the library. Are you the one who said see you later? She asked. We need a short text for announcements on the blue when there are delays due to the heat. Without irritation. In a human way. I wrote 3 options. 1. The train is delayed. The water is over there. The shadow is against the wall. The anger is past. 2. A little longer. Thank you for keeping each other's place. 3. The heat is strong. You are stronger. They left the second one. I drove specially during rush hours for several days, listening to my hold the place gently adjust to the doors closing. And he caught himself smiling stupidly. Meanwhile, Maya received a letter from the coffee chain. We need 200 mugs per month. Without dents, without brands, everything is the same. The money is good. I saw the master and the accountant fighting in it. We were sitting on the steps of the workshop, drinking iced tea from cans, and I said, I will support any choice. Just don't betray your grip spot. If you take it away, who will hold on? She nodded and grinned. I'll write them enough. That's what I'll write. The answer was short and mature. I can do 100 identical ones, but there will be a small dent in each one. It's the branding of a person. It didn't suit them. Maya came to me in the evening with a crushed box of defective mugs and said, then we will make the cup exchange wider. I realized that sometimes no builds too. June showed up as usual, quietly. I sent them a photo. Their sign at the Belmont is flickering after a downpour. Without text. I sent a picture of our bench by the river with a brass plate you can wait for yourself and sign. It's working. In response, a heart came with a smiley face. For the first time in a long time, not as a prick, but as a dot. There was a storm in July. The lights went out in several blocks at once. The city roared with generators, and we converted the laundry into a small headquarters on the move. I brought extension cords. The neighbor from the first one brought an inverter from the car. The hostess brought thermoses. I wrote on the blackboard, in large letters, there's water and charging here. The news is by the hour. The teenager, the one with the don't burn, screwed a homemade tea to the counter and hung out his cardboard box. Phones are for 15 minutes. So are the heroes. No one argued. June came in the evening. The dark cloth wrapped around his neck smelled of smoke. Their hood had broken off during a blackout, and he had to put it out on the spot. She smiled tiredly. It's quiet here. We have enough here, I replied, and held out the branded mug. June took it. Read the word. Nodded to Maya. Beautiful. And she left, like a neighbor who knows the door is open, but it's better to go home now. At night, Maya and I lay down on a rug in the workshop in the dark, listening to the rain on the tin and the breath of the city. Tell me honestly, she whispered, do you ever get scared that enough will one day become not enough? It happens. I didn't get smart, but more often, on the contrary, I've been thinking for too long that more would solve it. but it turned out that he decides on time. The light returned the next day, and the neighborhood seemed to conspire to live a softer life. New phrases appeared on the laundry board. Return the extension cord to the neighbor. Remember, 15 minutes of charging is a lot, thanks to the electricians. I added to the little ones. So are the heroes. The teenager gave me a thumbs up as he passed. In the fall, we were invited to a school fair. Show how words work. Maya and I made a simple station. Choose a brand for your day. On the table there are wooden mugs, dies, stamps. Later, call, drink water. Don't be a hero, hold on. Cancel, ask. Next to it is an ink pillow. The children branded their notebooks, shoes, sometimes their foreheads, we laughed, and their parents their palms. One father put ask on his wallet and told me, it's the hardest. I nodded. The Colon night moved to the hideout one day. We were given a small stage. Maya brought up a series of photos, fingers and mugs on the screen, and I read a short one. While it's spinning, don't judge. The dryer is making noise. It's not you. The empty bench is a sign for you, not a failure. In the end, the same CTA driver came up to me and said, it's really easier for people when they hear hold your seat. I promised and realized how nice it is to be a person who is asked not for an epic, but for a phrase in case. In the winter, Maya and I rented a small apartment together. No theater, no key, simple. It's just that one day I stay after a late drying, and in the morning I realized that I hadn't forgotten anything in the old place, which means I had already moved. We made our own mini shelf at the entrance with a dictionary for a rainy day. Lost my temper, changed my mind. Sorry, not today. Next to it is a hook for the enough mug. She hung like a talisman, not from trouble, but from greed. Sometimes I thought, if someone had told me 2 years ago that my main thing would consist of benches, boards, mugs and announcements, I would have grinned. Now I saw the picture differently. Small things become stable. Practical warmth. An editor in San Francisco once said. I wrote it down on a sticker and stuck it to my laptop. In March, the CTA called again. We need a short one for spring flooding in the tunnels. I fiddled with the words for a long time, then wrote, the water is coming, so are we. We help each other get off land. And to the little ones, take a shorter step, and you'll get further. Maya chuckled. It's your genre. Short and gentle in the back. I learned about June in fits and starts, as before. A new point, a new sauce, an evening for the benefit of the kitchen staff. She once sent me a recipe for rhubarb glaze. The world loves circles. Maya and I cooked it. It turned out sour and joyful. I took 2 pieces to the laundry room for the board. The hostess said, it is necessary to write. If it is sweet, it is halved. I wrote it down. Spring appeared first in puddles, then in the palms. On track 606, the wind was blowing at my back again, as if someone was pushing me. Maya and I were walking side by side, and arguing about a new sign for the second bench, at the turn, where people always start to rush. I suggested less is no later. She suggested take a break and you'll get there. In the end, they chose the third one, which was born in silence. Further is not faster. One at a time. At the opening, a man with a dog leash ran his finger over the letters and smiled. Thank you. I have this disease of speeding up. Me too, I said. They treat it with a mug. Sometimes we still cross paths with June. We recently met at the mailboxes. She said, I saw your hold the place at the station. Works. I saw your new sign. It's working too, I reply. We nodded and parted, not confusing yesterday and now. The adult version of forever. This morning, I measured the day with mugs again. The first is at home. Silence and array on the table. The second is in the laundry room. The board is full of new alien hold on. The third was on Damon. The train said doors closing, and I said see you later. Halfway through, I caught myself doing another grown-up thing. I stopped waiting for big turning points. Instead, I began to notice small levers, like a sound control that translates hum into speech. And it turned out that everything was moving from there. In the evening, I brought another phrase to the workshop for branding. Maya took it in her palm like an apple. What word? On time, I said. Where should we put it? On the inside, so that only the one who holds it can see. We set it down, rolled the mug out of the oven, and blew on it like a candle. The warm ceramics bounced in his hands. Alive is alive. I took a sip and thought, enough is enough when you want to continue. I wrote it on a card and stuck it in the laundry room next to someone's "Don't be a hero." He adjusted the edge of the tape, smiled, and the city, true to form, pretended that nothing had happened. But we knew it was happening again. Spring pulled the light over the edges of the roofs, and I realized that it was time to finish what we had been collecting piece by piece for so many months: benches, boards, mugs, short phrases, and the habit of breathing on time. First, the laundry room. The hostess brought a new soap dispenser and asked where to screw it on. I pointed to the corner near our board, where it was least drafty. The teenager with "Don't be a hero" silently handed over a screwdriver. I added a small one to the board. "If you can, don't complicate it." No one argued. The test exhale turned out to be quiet. Then the CTA asked for a text in case of spring water flows in the tunnels. I wrote, "The water is coming. We go out on dry land if we keep each other's place. If you walk shorter, you'll get further." Maya read it, nodded. "This is yours. On time, man without decorations." That evening, I took out a new blank from the drawer, a mug with a stamp on the inside of the handle. Not enough. We've already learned that. It said "on time." I held it in my palms and thought that every person should have at least one object that reminds me not of how much, but of when. We went to 606th Street to our second shop, the one at the turn where everyone starts to accelerate. The wind was blowing soft clouds, and the city pretended to be in no hurry. I put a mug in front of Maya. "Look inside," I said. She narrowed her eyes and smiled out of the corner of her mouth. "On time. Let's make this a rule," I breathed. "Not a promise for life, not an oath of never and forever. A rule for every day. Being with each other is on time. Fix what's being repaired. And do what gets in the way. And keep it before you explain." I didn't get down on one knee. I just sat down next to him. He placed the mug in her palm. "Stay with me," I said. "On time." Maya nodded, the way you nod when a word hits the groove. "Yes," she said. One at a time, we tightened another bolt on the bench, purely for business, without symbolism. The wood trembled under his fingers. I thought, if we ever have wedding rings, they will be hexagons, not rings, so that after the rain there will be something to tighten. I met June a week later at the mailboxes. She was holding a pastry box with rhubarb, smelled of citrus and fire. "I saw your walk shorter at the station," she said. "It's easier for people." "I saw your new sign," I reply. "It's easier for the eyes." We stood like neighbors who have something to admit without unnecessary words. "Take care of her." June nodded towards my stairs. "Sure," I said, and with that, our children's forever officially became an adult on time. No injections, without a theater. In the summer, the district held a fair, without a stage, with wires, paper flags and a dictionary table. Maya and I put up the brand plates. Later, drink water, ask, hold on time. Children stamped their sneakers, parents stamped their wallets, and one grandfather stamped his palm. The teenager pinned a sign to the table, "Heroes too." I added a small arrow next to the cooler, "Water." By evening, I realized that our phrases have been living apart from us for a long time. Someone wrote on the blackboard in the laundry room, "If it's sweet, it's in half." Someone scribbled on the bench with a nail, "You'll make it if you wait for yourself." And at the nearest station the train announced my "Hold your seat" as if it had never been mine. And that, it seems, is the best outcome, when yours becomes shared and doesn't need a signature. Maya and I finally moved in, without any celebrations. In the hallway, they screwed a hook under the mug with an internal "on time." It hangs at the level of the heart, clinging to the gaze on the way to the door. Next to it is a small shelf for a rainy day. The bars broke, "Sorry, not today," and an empty space for the word that is still needed. I wrote in pencil, "A place for tomorrow." In the laundry room, I took down my first cardboard from the wall, the one with the "does not eat" trembling in my hand, and replaced it with a new, neat one with the same meaning and a little less pathos. The hostess was laughing. "He's grown up." I shrugged my shoulders. Rather, I stopped shouting where the whisper is more audible. In the fall, we were given an evening at the hideout again. Maya showed me the series Palms and Mugs, and I read a very short 3 paragraphs about the prolonged drying, which doesn't have to be about you, about the bench in the middle of the rise, where you can wait for yourself, about the word "on time" on the inside, where only the person holding it sees. People listened, smiled, and nodded in the dark. At the end, the CTA driver came over. "Would you like to add one more thing? In case of falling leaves and slippery platforms?" "I'll add it," I said. "Stay close. Not for speed, for warmth. In winter, the city was turned off again without an announcement. We already knew what to do. Extension cords, tea, 15 minutes each, and so are the heroes. For the first time in years, the owner of the laundry hung her note on the door. It's open while it's glowing inside. I stood in the doorway, watched people come in, and thought that sometimes happiness is just a clear course of action. The night it snowed properly, I woke up and went to the kitchen. Our mug was hanging there. I took it off, poured water, and listened to the old house. On the windowsill were two hexagons, rings for the rain. I took one and put it in the inside pocket of my jacket, just in case it got loose. Maya and I went out onto the stairs, just to see how the snow was making the city quieter. I flipped the light switch in the entryway, not to the full, but to that delicate fraction of the light at which the steps are visible and does not blind the eyes. Someone looked up from below and said, "Thanks for the light." "You're welcome," I reply, and it wasn't a figure of speech. I've been afraid of finals for a long time, because I thought there was a loss hidden in them. Now I know that sometimes a story has quite a neat point, set on an exhale, not for the sake of effect, but for the sake of order. Everything else is a colon that lives in everyday details. In the morning, I measured the day with mugs again. The first is at home, quiet and warm. The second is in the laundry room. The board is full of other people's hang-on. The third is by the river. The bench is empty and this is a sign, not a failure. I took a sip and finally formulated the main thing, simple and personal. Enough is when you want to continue. On time is how we do it. I put the mug on the hook, felt the hexagon in my pocket, and smiled. The city, true to itself, pretended that nothing special had happened. But we knew that the end had been set. The lights are on. Next, one at a time.